Hey guys, welcome to Dicejunkies. I am Tim.
I'm Roger.
And today we are going to talk about Diceforge. Diceforge is a game for 2 to 4 players. It is actually, it's weird. It's not a deck building game or really like a dice building game, but you build the dice.
It's a dice forging.
It's a dice forging game, which is just, it's very unique, which is a lot of fun. And it's made for, people from 10 and up. I think that you could probably, that fits pretty well. The timing on this, we played this twice on stream, and it hit it pretty close to the mark both times. And, we BS a lot while we're playing. It still hit the mark. It does say that it's for 2 to 4 players. I think you'd probably agree with us that the sweet spot's 3. So you definitely want to have at least 3 players on here. It says 45 minutes to play through, right on there.
It was almost dead on each time.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to butcher these names, but I want to give credit where credit is due. The game is published by Libellud Games, and it was designed by Régis Bonnessée. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad, but we will move on. So, Diceforge, let's talk about the theme of the game a little bit. Roger, this is your game, so tell us what the idea behind Diceforge is.
So the idea behind Diceforge is that the gods have become bored, and so they recruit up to 4 humans, the players, to play their games. And so what they do is they give you these dice that provide you divine blessings that empower your character to make offerings to the gods, to give you better dice, enhance the facing so you can have better divine blessings. They also give you the ability, when you're getting the divine blessings, to perform heroic feats to get glory points. The glory points are used in the game. The highest glory, the person that scores the highest glory points becomes the demigod of their choosing. So we are their entertainment.
Gentlemen,
it's not a terrible spread.
I am now a demigod, according to the rules of this game. Awesome. The theme really fits the cards and the arts and everything that we're going to talk about here in a second. One of the aspects of the game, and I showed the dice here, I'm going to talk about them a little bit more when we go into the mechanics of the game, but directly on the board, in the starting area, you have an actual round counter. You start off with 3 players, and we lost a little marker right here, but you place a marker on the spot that you start off the game at. 10 rounds, once you're done with those 10 rounds, the game is done. It doesn't matter who is winning. There's no cap on victory points. It is literally, you're set on a timer, and it's just a mad rush to get as many victory points as possible. And I think that's how they definitely keep up with the 45-minute timer.
It's a very heavy ramp-up game.
Yeah, it is.
The rounds go by very quickly. It's almost shocking how fast the rounds go because of how little time you actually have.
Yep.
You build up your dice thinking you've got a strategy, and then you're running out of time. You have to flip that strategy.
By this card,
10 victory points, and you get to roll 1 dice 4 times.
boom.
So I'm going to show an extra one of those.
For victory. Boop, boop. For
cool.
Victory.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Jesus.
For victory.
Those things are spinning too, isn't it?
Yeah, just move that down 1 and put yourself on 4.
3 and 1 more roll.
Yep. Or 3, yeah.
And 4 gold.
Deal.
That one guard just like completely changed everything.
So let's get into the actual review.
Sure.
Let's talk about the design first.
Okay.
And for everybody that is, if you've seen this before, we review everything on a 1 to 20 scale, and that's a total. We break everything down between design, enjoyability, mechanics, and replayability. Design, you get a 1 if you put out a game, and then it's 1 to 5 from there. Everything else is rated on a score from 0 to 5. So that is a total of 1 to 20 that you have your possibilities for actually getting a score in our review. So starting with design, Roger, what did you give the design for this?
I give the design a solid 4, just because you actually use the box as the actual part of the game. The game itself on the side of the box actually is part of the design of the game.
And that sits right at the very end of the board that comes inside the game. It is made for the actual game itself. And we'll talk about this here in just a second too.
Besides the actual box being part of the game, everything just meshes and works well together. The cards, even the cards you place on the board, actually go in a specific spot, in a specific way, because it just fleshes out the environment even more.
And it sits, so you have your board here, and it fits in directly matching in with the board itself.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
So the entire game, the entire box is part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You have the gardens, you have a river, you have the entire board, all the cards all mesh well together. The design is almost perfect.
Yeah. As far as I go, I would also rate it a 4. Kind of building on what Roger's already talked about. I love the fact that they use the box. I love the fact that everything in here is used. And one of the biggest things for me is that whenever we get a game, we always kind of take it, especially if it's got a lot of parts. You take the parts out. We use our own sort of organizational patterns, use different things to put it in there. You do not need to do that with this. It even tells you in the instructions how to put everything back together. And that is absolutely great. And
I love games that do that.
yeah, and everything fits in here perfectly. They did a very, very good job with that. There's still a little bit to the, if you can tell with, this is just the marker to show who goes first. And the quality of most everything that you use in here is great. But the cards, they're not quite as thick. Now, you don't have to shuffle them, so that's good. But they're probably not going to last nearly as long as thicker cards would.
You will see the age on the game the more you play.
You will, and that's just
cardboard bins. If anything gets wet.
So this game MSRP's at about $40.
Oh, even better.
So you should be able to go to any of your local gaming stores and get this for a decent price. With everything that's in here, $40, that's not bad.
No, absolutely not.
So there are a little bit of different things in here. I did want to show this. This shows you, this is actually the, the Sanctuary?
Yes.
Which is where you buy your dice faces. And it slides, this is just the slide cover. This is actually all the die faces. So it shows you how to put it back together.
Yep.
It slides in here, which hopefully I can do this without busting everything. And I did?
Oh,
Nope.
no, you didn't.
Nope.
No, you didn't.
Which is just the nature of the beast. But it even comes with a little band that you can slide across it to make sure that it does not slide out while you're moving it around. That is a lot of forethought that they put into this.
Yes, and that band does keep all the pieces in there. If you do not have that band, the pieces will fall out.
Yep. So, with that being said, in total, I give it a 4. Roger, you give it a 4 as well for the design of this game. So we're going to start off with a 4. So let's talk about the enjoyability of this game. How did you enjoy it?
I thoroughly enjoyed the game. after I've played it numerous times, but it's been so long since I've played it that I just forgot how much I really enjoyed playing it. We played it twice. We played it through once, and we immediately set it up and played another round of it. I do want to play the advanced version of it. It does have an advanced mode. It does add more mechanics, and the mechanics do add a little bit more complexity to the game. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. The game is fun, and it just works.
Mm-hmm. So, in total, how much score would you give that?
I would give it a 4.
Okay, cool.
The game's great.
So, with that, you give it a 4, which knocks you up to an 8 so far. I actually give this a fairly high score for me as well. I give it a 3. I enjoyed the game while I played it. The first time, I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than I did the second time.
It's because you won.
Well, yeah, no. That has very little to do with the enjoyability and more to do with the replayability, which we'll get here to in a second. But the game is fun to play. The pacing is great. Like I mentioned from the start, it goes, the 45 minutes is almost dead on. There's very little downtime in between rounds. The play interaction is not... It doesn't promote a lot of player interaction between each other, but it does allow for a lot of, just talking back and forth, trying to get people to do what you want them to do. With the oust mechanic, where you bump somebody off of the place, off of their spot. But altogether, it's fun. It's somewhat... There is definitely a lot of strategy to the game with the randomness, which I'll get to here in a minute when we talk about the mechanics. But it's very simple. There's not a lot to this game, and I like a little bit more meat in my games. So just for me personally, I give it a 3, which is still a very decent score. So that puts me at a total of 7 so far. Roger, you are currently at an 8. All right, so let's talk about the mechanics. Get into the nitty-gritty of Diceforge.
So as far as mechanics go, there is so much strategy to this game. Everything you do matters because you have a limited amount of time. You acquire your mechanics. You get your divine blessings from the dice. You buy dice faces to go with your strategy. Everyone gets to roll the dice. There's minimal to no downtime for any player. You're always doing something because when I roll my dice, everyone rolls their dice at the very beginning. So there's only a tiny window that no one else is doing anything. I love the strategy behind it. The mechanics are great and they're not too difficult on the easy mode. I do remember personally playing the advanced mode a couple times, and the mechanics do get a little confusing in the advanced play. I personally would actually like to play the advanced mode again. But just for picking up and playing the game, I think the game has solid mechanics.
Okay. So you give it a total of?
I'll give it a 4 for mechanics.
Excellent.
Because there's so much strategy in the game.
Awesome. So that puts your total so far at a 12. For me, it gets another solid score. I give it a 7. I give it another 3. That I'm not going to go all the way up to a 4. I agree with a lot of what Roger has said on here. There is strategy to the game. There's also randomness, which any game there has to be some randomness to it. If it is just a back and forth, any game like this, unless you're playing something like chess or just a straight strategy game, there has to be some sort of randomness to kind of keep things flowing. Especially if you have multiple players. For me, honestly, the randomness is a little overbearing. The reason why I say is, all of these little, the neat little gimmicks, and I'm going to show you the die, all of the dice that are in this game. I was a little worried to begin with because I was afraid, and this kind of goes back to the design. I was afraid that swapping out the faces was going to be difficult or that it would mess with the randomness of the die roll. But all you have to do to switch out the dice, the faces, is that. You pop off a die face, put on a new one, and you're good to go. Still rolls the same, which is really cool. Problem that I have with it is that when you break this game down into its core mechanics, it is a resource management game.
Oh, it absolutely is.
You can change the faces of these die to whatever you want, but it still is random as to what you're going to roll. Therefore, your strategy all depends on a dice roll. So, whereas it compensates by the different things that you can add, changing the die faces, which is an amazing aspect to it. But that randomness there, I can't give it more than a 3 for mechanics.
Yeah.
So, still 3 is a very solid number. Replayability. Would you play this game again, Roger?
Shit, yes.
So, what? Tell me why.
The game has tons of replayability, in my opinion. Because you will never play this game the same way twice. You swap out a few different cards for a couple of the advanced mechanics or all the advanced mechanics. You can keep the game the way it is. You can change your strategy, and your strategy may work for the first few rounds or maybe even the last few rounds. But you're going to have to constantly think and strategize.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of randomness to it, and that does, I would say it does play a huge part in this game, because you could go for a strategy, and like one of the other players earlier, it didn't work for him.
Nope.
It did not work at all.
Did not work whatsoever.
No, because he went for one mechanic, he ran with it, and he never got the dice rolls.
Yep.
And that's one thing about it, but I think the game has extremely high replayability.
And the game, there are variants to the game. You've got the regular version of the game, and then which will play different each time that you play.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the advanced mechanics that you can play with, the advanced rules, which adds more replayability there. And they announced, in April of this year?
April this
2018? There is an expansion that is going to be coming out. We don't know too terribly much about the expansion. It is not out yet. It's still under pre-order. But it's supposed to add at least 30 new cards.
New dice faces, new mechanics.
Dice faces, new mechanics. So that's going to add even more replayability to this game.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and I'm going to get it.
Oh, yeah. So overall, you would give it probably
I'll give it another 4.
Another 4. Excellent. So that's going to put you up to a total of 16. For me, I sat here and listening to you, and I am going to actually change my score. So originally I was going to give it a 3, but listening to everything that Roger said about it, I agree. The game, replayability-wise, taking away everything else, the randomness of it, each time that you play, it is not going to be the same. You play with a different number of people. That changes the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You play with the advanced rules. That changes the game. You just play with the same amount of people that you just had, like we did earlier.
Yeah.
It changes the game. And I love that. The replayability of this game is super high. Add in the simple fact that you have the new expansion that's coming on. And if it does well, I'm sure they will do another expansion to this, or add on to it, maybe do a different version of Diceforge. This seems to be a fairly popular game so far. So originally I was going to give it a 3. I have to give it a 4. So that puts my total score up to a 14. So with that, if you take the average of the two, I think Dicejunkies is going to give Diceforge a total of 15. 15 points for Diceforge. That is a fairly good score. I mean, that would hit any orc that's walking around. I'd hit pretty much anything other than like plate armor. So, but no, Diceforge, 15 out of 20 points. That is well above average.
It's a must-have.
Yeah, highly recommend that even if you don't immediately buy this game, try it out. If you try it, you probably are going to buy it unless you are just with a horrible group of people playing.
Yep.
At that point, I recommend finding a new group of people to play with. But, guys, hope you enjoyed the review of this game. Check out Diceforge, again, by some people that I'm not going to butcher their name anymore. But I hope that if you like this review, come check us out more on YouTube. We play these games every Thursday on Twitch. And we're always up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Check us out, see what we're going to be playing next. Hit us up on Patreon so that we can get more games to play. And yeah, with that, any final words on Diceforge?
It's an amazing game. You're gonna need to play it. You
Excellent.
gotta play it.
Thanks, guys. Keep playing games.